Saddam Hussein to some was the Lion of Babylon, a fierce nationalist who modernized Iraq and stood up to Western imperialism. To others, he was a butcher, a paranoid dictator who gassed his own people and plunged the Middle East into decades of war. Even today, 20 years after his execution, his name triggers a divide unlike almost any other leader in history. Was he a fraud? A puppet of foreign powers who went crook? Or was he a true champion of the Arab world, destroyed for his defiance? Today, we are looking at the fact beyond the myth. To understand why millions still view Saddam as a hero, you have to look at Iraq in the 80s under the Ba'ath Party. Iraq underwent a social transformation while many neighboring countries struggled with poverty. Saddam used oil wealth to build a world-class infrastructure. The numbers are staggering. In 1982, UNESCO gave Iraq a special award for virtually eradicating illiteracy. By the mid-80s, the illiteracy rate among youth was near 0%. He built free hospitals, electrified the countryside, and pushed for women's rights in a way other few regional leaders dared. By the 1985, female literacy reached 87%. Beyond the borders of Iraq, he positioned himself as the ultimate defender of the Arab cause. He was the primary financier of the Palestinian movement, famously paying the families of martyrs to many Palestinians and anti-imperialists. He wasn't a dictator, he was the only leader with the backbone to challenge Israel and the United States directly. But there is a darker side, one documented in mass graves and chemical archives. Saddam's rise to the presidency in 1979 began with a public purge, where he sat on stage smoking a cigar while dozens of his own party members were led away to be executed. His rule was defined by a cult of personality that bordered on the divine. He was Al-Mujaddid, the great reformer whose face was on every wall and whose 90-volume official biography was mandatory reading. But behind the propaganda was a relentless security apparatus. The low point came in March 1988, the Halabja chemical attack. The Iraqi military gassed the Kurdish town, killing an estimated 5,000 civilians, mostly women and children, in minutes. This wasn't a war against a foreign invader, it was a campaign against his own citizens. Add to that the brutal suppression of the 1991 uprising and the catastrophic invasion of Kuwait, and the image of a heroic nationalist begins to look like a mask for a man obsessed with absolute power. Then there is the question of the fraud. Conspiracy theorists have long claimed Saddam was a CIA asset. It is true that in 1959, a young Saddam was involved in a CIA-backed plot to eliminate the pro-communist Prime Minister Qasim. But historical archives suggest this was a brief, opportunistic alliance. By the time he was president, the CIA viewed him not as an agent, but as a master manipulator who could not be controlled. The ultimate irony, the very justification for the 2003 invasion, his supposed lies about weapons of mass destruction, turned out to be a reverse fraud. Saddam had actually disarmed by the mid-90s, but maintained a posture of ambiguity to deter Iran. He wasn't lying about having weapons, he was pretending to have them to stay relevant. Saddam Hussein remains an incubable test for the Middle East. If you value stability, modernization, and secular nationalism, you might see a fallen hero. But if you value human rights, democracy, and peace, you see a monster whose ego destroyed the nation. The tragedy of Iraq is that both sides contain a kernel of truth. He built the schools, but he also filled the grave. He defied the West, but his actions invited the very invasions he claimed to be preventing. So, was he a hero or a fraud? Perhaps he was simply a man who believed his own myth so deeply that he couldn't see the ruins he was leaving behind. What do you think? Does his work for Iraqi society outweigh his crimes? Or was the cost of his progress too high? Let us know in the comments.